And you are now live.
Thank you, Aisha. Welcome everyone to today's FBS Chat. Our special guest, Gesa from the Netherlands. My co-host, sorry, Ella, again from the Netherlands. I don't know where Ella, but I know it's somewhere there. And Brian from Ghana. So we're actually really spread out. And Gesa, as you're our special guest, I'm curious to know how you first came across solution-focused brief therapy and what difference it made to you.
Yeah, sure. A lot. I'm an occupational therapist by training, and after I had my first workplace, my first employment was in a clinic for female drug addicts, alcoholic, whatever. But it was a great clinic with 20 places for women and children. And one of my favorite colleagues and still a dear friend was working with the mothers, like doing the being as a family therapist. So I got really interested. I mean, I was 20 something, so I had only just started as an OT as well. But after a few years, I switched positions and then thought, but systemic therapy or that whole idea of family therapy had stuck with me. And I kept thinking, like, what do I want to do? I want to keep on training. What do I want to do? And then started investigating. And someone recommended the NIC in Bremen and Berlin, saying, do that because they have the big names. And I had no clue that Insoo and Steve were big names, but soon I did. So I did a 3-year training there. And as I think in the very first module, it was a 3-year training. In the very first day, while I was listening to the trainer, I thought, yeah, this is how I think this is what happens to many people getting trained in SF and loving it, that I felt like, okay, this is what I want to do, or this is what I'm already doing, but didn't know I was doing. And this is how I want to look at people and recovery and how I want to deal with them. So I was hooked. Yeah.
So we've got the NIC, which I'm not sure what that is, but I'm sure you can explain.
It's in northern Germany. So it's the institute. Maybe you've met Manfred Vogt. I think he's also at the EBTA. Like he is quite active, but I think mostly in the German-speaking countries.
Right. Okay.
But we had Insoo as a trainer. We should have had Steve for a few workshops, but he died that year. It was 2005 that I started. So he died that year. And we had Yvonne Dolan, for example. We had quite a few great seminars, which even fascinated me more.
So on that first day, you said, okay, what was it about that first day that made you think, this is it? I found my home.
I think partly it was the whole package of a fantastic old building in Berlin, close to friend, whatever. Like I traveled there from Cologne, but the first story that stuck with me was that he started with a famous, like a journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step, and that is still the we know that, yeah, sure. But what he said next fascinated me, that the translation is wrong. It's too big a movement. That the original text is that the journey of 1,000 miles starts with a shift of balance. And that I like. This really rings a bell with SFP, with my view of solution focus, that it's an even smaller movement, like the pre-session change. Someone decides, I want to do something, or like looks towards the future, or in my trainings, I always say, like, they shift their balance so they can even set a step, like that they have enough weight on one leg or feel safe enough to make a movement. So I love that. And I think what also fascinated me, that Heinrich, like the teacher we had, he incorporates it. Same as Yvonne, same at Insoo. He's so much SF and looking for competencies and being curious at all times. So it was, I think the whole package was what helped.
And did you experience the same as I did? Was there a mixed group of people who already quite knew some?
No,
Oh.
We were all new to it in a very small group. We were only 8 women. So there was no way to hide. So in every module, because it was every month, it was 3 days.
Mhm.
So it was full on. You couldn't decide, like, go to the back and like hide in the background and of 20 people and let someone else do the role play. But it was your turn every 5 minutes. So that was also nice. It was a mixed group. It was a lot of psychologists, social workers, whatever. So at the beginning, I was wondering, what can I do as an OT? I was working at the academic hospital in Cologne. So I had groups of 15 people. So my first challenge was, how do I apply it? Like, how I don't have the luxury of having 45 minutes to talk to someone. Well, by now I do, but back in the day I didn't. But it worked.
So I guess they were also happy with you, because someone else, felt it works also in my job with and not only with one-to-one conversations.
But I mean, we really were, or at least part of it, a very close-knit group. I saw them last weekend for my birthday, so we are still, it's 17 years down the line. So it's
Wow.
It was a close group and very close to one another, but open in what we shared. So I think you don't have much of a choice with all the role plays. I think they helped me move to Amsterdam. I found the other day like one of Yvonne's exercises, the letter from the future. And I drew a little, like those typical Dutch bikes, and I drew 2 kids in it, and I wrote all kinds of things where I wanted to work, and most of it came through.
So
it's interesting that very, very often we're trying to find what are the strengths in our clients, and what strengths do they begin to discover as we begin to go through the process. But I wonder what strengths you began to discover in yourself as you began to experience the SF approach.
I think it's a brilliant question. I think what I had before and what made it so familiar is that I've always been in awe of the ability of the people I was dealing with, or I'm still working with. That I think if I would be sitting here with you now, I'm nervous as it is, but if I had voices in my head shouting at me or telling me this is going to be completely rubbish, and that whatever, that tree behind Joe must mean a message to Ella that I shouldn't be here or whatever, but they still have a nice conversation with me, telling me what their future job ideas are, I'm completely fascinated. Like I'm in awe of their abilities. But to come back to your question, I think what I loved about it is the skills building of knowing how to ask and what to ask. Like my first aha moments were the coping questions, the exception questions that I could, because in someone who's completely convinced of the psychosis at the very moment, to not discuss it, but to be able to say, okay, so what do you need? Like there's that typical case example of Steve the Gesa working with that woman who says, like, the neighbors, I think, sending down whatever, and they discuss where to put the bed. This is something I do on a daily basis, like discuss with young people with the first play course to say, where do you need to sit in the college, like at university? Do you need to sit in front of the teacher so that you don't get distracted by whatever's going on in the background? And the other person says, I need to be at the very back so that if someone coughs, I can check if they look at me weirdly or something. So I think the coping question, also exceptions, were some of those things where I thought, I can just do that. Now you can do it in a group. You can just creatively, you can still apply it anyway if you have 15 people in a group. It's not it's just the way to listen and the way of asking questions. I discovered that I can do live translate because I kept translating for Yvonne after because we always had a translator in the group. and if we had the big names. And one was really, really, really good, and the other one was really, really, really bad. But that helped because I kept thinking, I can do this better. I want to do this. So when I finished the studies, they for a few years I translated for Yvonne every year, and that was absolutely fascinating. That was just so cool to be the fly on the wall, not even behind the mirror, to be in the room. Having to, well, I got to ask the questions, but in her words.
So when you when you first came across the approach, sorry, were you training to be an occupational therapist?
No, I already was.
You already was. Okay.
Yeah.
So when you went back to your normal, OT job, what difference did you think it made to the clients that you saw?
The SF approach? Yeah, as I said, I think the first big differences were the coping questions, the exception questions, and then we had to do case studies, but I also wanted to do a new intervention because many people in psychiatric hospital, or especially young people, feel it's a waste of time. It feels something shameful, and I'm especially now, they think, yeah, okay, I'm here for 3 months, but my peers keep on studying, whatever. So what I did with them is just simple scaling, but to say, what have you learned? Like to see, how did you come in? How are you leaving now? What are you taking along? And give them, they got to choose like little things and little reminders to say, what have you learned in this period of time? Because it is really valuable, of course, but it doesn't feel like that moment of the self-stigma and the feeling of, okay, I'm in a mental health hospital, so I must be crazy, and not I'm learning a lot. Yeah, and I mean.
So in the setting that you were in, Gesa, were you bringing a new approach? Had other OTs in your hospital already aware of it? Were you fighting the system? How did it work?
I think that there's a big difference between where I'm working now and the one in Cologne. The setting was still a bit back in the day. I mean, it's already 15 years ago, so I have no clue how they're working now. But back in the day, it felt like the typical old-fashioned OT setting in the cellar, group of 15 people doing creative, whatever. But I've always felt the freedom, like if the doctors haven't a clue what I'm doing, I got all the freedom to do what I think is, what I know is usual. So I think for me, it's always been the combination of knowledge, and that could be SF, but also, of course, before things that work, and creativity of how to do it, and then change something. And I've never had a single manager who said, don't do it. Like if I came, like, okay, I've read this article and this is how I did, and this is how we can do it. I can still accommodate 15 people, but I would like to change this. And this is something I always did, and that worked with SF as well. But I think it was more alien than it is now, because now for the past 15 years, I'm working on a department for early onset psychosis at the academic hospital in Amsterdam. And while this is still very much an academic setting, and it's about giving them medication, of course, but the very first question from our psychiatrist in the beginning is already, what do you want to see instead? Like, what do you want to do with your life? And so there it never felt different. And then I'm still the job coach who has to do it anyway, so I can still have my freedom in my 45 minutes or whatever. I have all the freedom to change things, but it feels more like we have the same goal. So
I've got a question from Mark, which is to you, Gesa, but I think anyone can answer this and jump in. I always felt coping questions are kind of different from exception ideas.
Of course.
What would Gesa say about that thinking?
Of course, I meant them as two different things. Like one is the coping, like what helps you to deal with it, like what helps my client to start working. Like we work with IPS, which is individual placement and support. So we look for a job on the first job market, like the normal. And exceptions for me still would be like when was it a bit better? So when did you suffer less from voices, or when was it easier to deal with it? So exception of the problem, or exceptions from like when did they suffer less? Like when is it easier to deal with it? Absolutely, it's two different things, but it both really helps. And I mean, with the way we do supported employment, we ask them the very first week. So they come in, they still completely, I think, overwhelmed sometimes, but we start that conversation right at the start, not to say, okay, we're going to apply for a job tomorrow, but to say, what would you like? And there, I mean, the best hopes and the scaling is in my very first conversation to say, what's your best hope for this treatment? Like, what would you like to see differently afterwards? Yeah. Or how would you know that it's different? So that's, I don't really ask the miracle question. It doesn't really work with my kind of, they're 20, they're 19. Many times they feel like, what an odd question. So I tend to ask, like, I meet you. I do ask it, but in a few years, I meet you in the street and you're going to tell me you're feeling fantastic. And then still I go through all the details, what they're doing and whatever, but I don't always at least use the miracle question.
And when we would meet you in the streets about 20 years.
Okay, yeah.
What would be a lovely story you would love to tell us about your work or FS?
That's a
Solution Focus SF.
20 years from now, I hope I'm. That's a great question. I think I will still be giving training in SF. I would love to, like, still give training, and I will probably, I would hope that I'm still doing something with developing either games or some, like, gamification is something I'm really passionate about. So something to facilitate the work. I'm not sure at 66. I'm not sure I still want to be working with adolescents. I'm not sure I would be the right person. But sometimes
it will keep you young. It will keep you young.
Of course, and I still feel that way. But we'll see.
About these games, I actually wanted to ask about your games and have enough time for this. Tell us, please, what you've made.
Okay. Well, I first need to say the context, because for the past 10 years or 9 years, I've started giving training on SF. Like, first it started with giving an hour for my own team or for colleagues at a befriended team, then for whatever, a 20 euro book voucher or whatever. But it has gotten bigger. And what I realized, many times I give 2-day training, 3-day training, half a day, whatever, and many times to OTs. And as I stand and I come with a whole suitcase full of stuff anyway, or even before, but I kept thinking, they look at me like, if I tell them the basic tenets, they say, yeah, the client is the expert. But some of them, I see them thinking, yeah, sure, but my clients aren't, because they've had a stroke, or because they are too ill, or because they are still too young. So what I was looking for was a way of doing that transfer of ideas right there, like to bring the message across, not only preaching, because I know they're excited right there and then they're excited, but then they go back home and I want them to find out what they're going to do differently on Monday, like if they've listened to me. So I was looking for a way, and the game came to me like my book somehow by chance as well. I met the right person, because the mother of an ex-client of mine, and I actually asked her, I'm allowed to say it. She is a gamificator, so she has a serious gaming academy, and she contacted me about something else, about a study thing we're doing, and I didn't want to talk to her in the first place because I was too busy, and I thought, this is the that thing is not something which is, it's not my product. So how am I going to develop a game? I don't have the time. And one of my colleagues kept saying, Gesa, but she's cool. Meet with her. Like, just have that meeting. Just go. And I went, and still, I think it took an hour and a half. And that it was too chaotic. It didn't really work out for that product because of someone else. But the whole hour and a half, I said, I don't want to talk about this, but I want to talk about a game for my trainings. And so that's been my COVID entertainment. So she helped me with design thinking, with how to develop it. And it has been a great process. So, and there the game idea is mostly for people to get familiar or become more familiar with the 4 basic tenets. So leading from one step behind. If something isn't broken, don't fix it. If something works, do more of it, and so on. And then they play it in teams. I actually have some questions here.
Oh.
Yeah, I thought I can ask you
something.
Oh no!
I want to look at.
I love this game.
Trouble.
Yeah, let's shock you. No, and they play in groups, because my whole idea, and that was funny, because Harriet, who helped me, kept wanting a Monopoly idea. There needed to be a prison, and you needed to lose cards, and win cards, and whatever. And I kept thinking, but this isn't the goal. Like, my goal is, my best hope is that they talk to one another and that they come up with new knowledge. So they play in teams. So the blue team is leading from one step behind, for example. And then they get a question and they discuss it between themselves. So all 4 teams play and they walk around, and it's a big game. It's 2.5 meters by 2.5 meters. So what would that be? 3? I don't know how many feet. 7, 8 feet, something like that.
Yeah, 7, 8 foot square. Yeah.
So it's big. So it's on the ground. So it has a wow factor from the start, because people just wake up again. I play it in the afternoon, and then they sit down after lunch, and then they go, whoa, we're playing a game. And then they stand up again. So, for example, one of the blue team questions would be, if the client is the expert, what's your role? And then they discuss it, because it's not that I keep saying, yeah, and the client is the expert, but I see them doubting. So like this, they discuss it. They put their answer down on a blue sheet of paper, put it down in the middle, and keep walking. So then they just answer it. Yeah. And I see the question of Mark. Absolutely. Adults like it likewise. They both. And another question, which I love, which came up after that film of what happens in the brain with SF questions, is something like, how many reasons? No, where is it gone? If a client answers with, I don't know, how many different reasons for his answer can you think of? And then they discuss it, they lie down, and they walk around. And then there's a few special feels, like the sparkling moments of Mark Macago. But then, depending on the quadrant, it can be something like, for example, if something doesn't work, it's something, how have you managed to deal with a difficult situation, like whatever. It's like all kinds of extra questions which are in themselves SF, but also trigger them or make them more hopefully of their own resources, own abilities. Yeah.
Where can we buy this?
There is, since last week, there's also a board game version. So there's the tiny. Yeah, because I thought it was a waste of my time to only use it in training. So I've started using it with my clients, also a big version. But this one is the carry along the therapy version. And then leading from one step behind becomes resources and helpers, like whom do you always call for help, like, or whom can you always rely on, or what kind of music makes you dance, or whatever, all kinds of things. And yellow is the best hopes. So they set a goal beforehand, I write it down, and then they walk around and discuss it, and that also really works.
So we can't buy this?
You can, but I'm still in the process. I've sold the first 2.
Okay. She's very impatient.
The thing is, in developing it in small numbers is still, but for now, this one is still a boxing system from IKEA. It is professional at the inside. It's just it's same as the other one on PVC, so you can roll it up, you can wash it easily. So it's still it's gone through, but the mass production hasn't started yet. So I really need to get that one going. But you can send me an email. So whoever wants it, send me an email.
Brian Jennings, who's here with us now, knows that I am the most patient person.
Please.
And Brian is secretly messaging me saying, it's all right, you're going to get the board game, just wait.
Aisha, you will. But I mean, I will bribe you. You have to come to Amsterdam first.
To collect it.
You have to pick it up.
Because you have made
everybody else, but Joe and Aisha, you have to pick it up.
We'll have to pick it up.
So
because you have made it in English.
There's an English, a Dutch, and a German version.
Wow.
But she's keeping it to herself, Ella.
No, the thing is, the publisher who published my book said, "Oh, a game! I want to do that too." But I was scared of. I didn't really want to. Or if anybody knows a publisher who would do it in 3 languages and leave me total freedom, because so far I also love it that I can play it with you and then think, "Oh, can tweak it a little bit. This needs to be different, or I can change this question. I can just do it." So far, it's in self-production, but it's so funny that it was my best hopes as reached and exceeded, because I didn't expect it to be something people would want to buy. I thought this is for me, for my training, and it's fun, and it is.
Yeah, and it's also really good conversational points for, like the SFIO meetings and all the other meetings to kind of, the question of the month, and just kind of pick one out, breakout rooms, there you go. So there's and I can see staff using it in schools and in family meetings. There's so many different ways that you can use it.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I'd definitely be interested.
No, and I would love that. The funny thing is that it and this is something very much me, that it's not a thought process and then at some point I might put it in action. It just happens, and I tend to go with the flow and think, okay, let's try.
Yeah.
I mean, the same, my book.
Show us your book, please.
God. Must be here somewhere. So it's small. And my goal for the book was, well, actually there was no goal in the first place. I was giving a training at an OT conference in Germany, and one of the participants, I was giving it just an 1.5-hour workshop. And one of the participants in the end, when I was talking about, okay, you can buy this book by Frederick Bonnick and this is how you can continue. And then one of the girls said, like, have you published about it? I think you could do that. And I thought, yeah, I would like that. And my dad has published quite a lot, so I know it's possible. So I had decided, while I'm here at the conference, I can look at the different publishers and just see, because I had an idea immediately that there's so many theory books on SF, on people who know more than I do. And I wanted something for the people in my workshops, like a bit, not SF light, but just have enough theory to understand what they're doing, but then have a scaling. There's a lot of download material. So what I wanted is them to have a scale they can download example questions for the scaling motivation, or scaling feeling of self-efficacy, or whatever, like all kinds of ideas, have some tips, have some ideas, and then just do it. Yeah.
What do you think, Brian?
Lisa, what languages is it available in?
So far only German, which is very frustrating. I tried to have it translated into Dutch because this is where I'm working now. And as the Dutch market is quite small, the publisher here wanted all the OT study, like the University of Applied Sciences, but they wanted all those 5 universities to say, okay, we're going to write it on the literature book, on the obligatory books. And of course they didn't, because I generally think it's a useful book, but between a useful book and one every student should read, then I would recommend Steve or Insoo. Not me. But so far only German. Yeah. Nah, but
English would be a good one. It's a large.
Or if you know a publisher.
So how did you come across the idea that teaching these assumptions through a game and the way you work with your young people? Because we work with young people in schools all the time, and often it's too clinical just to have a conversation. Sometimes you need almost a distraction. So
absolutely.
Some of our guys will play Jenga, but on each block there's a word that is inspirational, and what does it mean to them, and blah 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 blah. So when did you decide I need to make this less clinical, but still get the message across?
For teaching, yeah, but as I said, even before, I had a huge suitcase full. I have animals, I have finger puppets, I think this is why I clicked with Pam, even virtual. I met her at the SFBT conference and thought, I like you. I know it. So I've always loved gamification as a way of getting a message across, because people are more open, people, especially young people, but also adults. I've had feedback from people who say, oh, it's so much less scary, and that's adults in the training who say it's so much less scary to just answer these questions while I'm standing up around the game, and just and this is what keeps surprising me as well, that still it can be a very personal question, but I just answer it. And I had a client a few weeks back who got the question, when was the last were you in the flow, like completely in your element? And his answer was, last Saturday, when I got completely drunk. But what happened next really helped, because so far, I mean, I really, really like him, but it was somewhat feeling very vulnerable at the moment. He would get told off for smoking in his bathroom, and then he would be told off for drinking, and then he would be told off for whatever. And suddenly there seemed to be room. It was me listening and 3 other clients. And suddenly he could perfectly well explain why that made him feel in the flow, but also what he felt the Sunday morning and what he would maybe could do differently. And it was a shift, because before it was also always defensive, and he has whenever, and there, for example, coping and exceptions never really worked. He has so many abilities. I do games a lot. I used to do a bingo with what's on your bucket list, and he has done a skydive. Like, wow, so cool. But for him, it's just yeah. Well, it wasn't so scary. So it wasn't something. That compliment didn't click, and suddenly that question did. Like, all those compliments just went zooming past him. Maybe there's something like, this is a different life. That's what happened. And then suddenly in the gaming situation, it works, and he makes a joke, and he plays it. And in the end, of course, let's make it not too big. In the end, when at reflection, he would say, that was different. I didn't get the time to ask what difference it made. But
yeah. Just left him with that thought that was different.
Yeah.
Let him go away with it.
And somehow it helps. He. And I like games. I also have a Jenga that's for acceptance and commitment therapy. I have a Jenga, I do bingo, I do all kinds of games. So I like it. I do some things which are, as if you turn them around, or more paradoxal, to write a soup recipe of what can you do to get at your worst, like what ingredients does it take for you to get completely psychotic or depressed or whatever, and suddenly they can do it. They can write you down all day. Little sleep, smoking, whatever. All those, I like it. And it's not
what
all
is
fun.
your
Sorry.
What is your favorite game that you've developed?
Oh, I think the mindsetter. And then the therapy version. I mean, I had to laugh at myself because on LinkedIn, or someone I played it with now, who's a peer, or what's the word? Like, he has experience of psychosis in the past, so he's working as is that a peer supporter or whatever would be the English word? And he played it and had all kinds of ideas, and then he took a photo, and I looked so happy on that photo that I thought, yeah, this is just the proof how much I love playing it. Yeah. I like it.
Where do these ideas come from? This, like, can you just look at any game and think, I can SF that up?
Yeah, I mean, the funny thing that I had to think back on that conversation with Pam, because that was the SFBT conference, and as it was in COVID time, so it was online. And then I think the session I had signed up for was SF games, and I thought, oh, cool, I can get some inspiration. And it was fascinating. It was about Harry Coleman's Magic Square, but I kept thinking, where's the gaming? So at some point I asked it, and Pam, who I didn't know that Pam was Pam, but Pam said, "Oh, Gesa, what would you do?" And I could just think, "Oh, let's roll a dice, or let's try something different." And so we got talking, and that really. Now I think I have a few things I would like to make people have my next participants in the workshop. So be aware. I would like them to develop a game, like just get them some stamps, or get them the magnet board Pam developed, or get them some dice or whatever, to see what could they come up with. And I mean, the last training last week was in an OT practice in Berlin. And that's the perfect space for me, because they have everything they have. And I remember that during the training, we did one of the intervision. We had to do peer-to-peer intervision and meet up. And we did that in her private practice. And I remembered suddenly that I had been standing on that ladder in order to do scaling a different way, like to use the space and something, and that just really. And in OT practice or something, you have it all. They can climb, they can build, they have blocks to stand on, they have, so that, I think in movement, you can do so much. I do always scaling in walking or in climb. I like it. I think it just triggers you differently, and it's just, a different way, not the school way where they fall asleep around the table. If I ask them, Joe, what did you think? And I said, what did you think? And Brian, and then they go, what he said.
Oh, wow.
I'm still thinking about it.
Yeah.
I know I've actually heard Mark has asked a question, which I think is a brilliant question. But I've actually heard Brian explain this before, and I think it was at an SF Collective meeting that I haven't been to in a very long time because we've been so busy. But can we start with Brian and then Gesa and maybe Ella? And he kind of pointed out, so SF is just like a constructive conversation, right? And for people that don't know what SF is or what a constructive conversation is, how would you best describe that, Brian? And then I'll go to Gesa and Ella. Sorry, I'm putting you on the spot, Brian.
Okay, well, rather than trying, I came into SF because I was the quality manager in my institution. And of course, you're meant to find the problems and who's responsible and, sort it and get to the root and sort it out. So you dig big holes. And then I was reading some of the literature, and I came across a guy called Ed Salis, who was using a solution focus approach to building quality in education. And it was like, so, what are our best hopes? What are the things that our students are really appreciating? And so it meant beginning to build on, okay, well, Desage really says it, it's a question of what's working, and then what might be able to work better for our students. And so instead of having teams analyze their problems and their root causes and what they needed to change, is okay, so what are your successes and how can you build on those more constructively? And this was much more fun and led to a lot less recrimination and defensiveness, but instead it meant people were able to pull down the defenses and actually begin to build some bridges over the moats and move out into more expansive places. So that was really, really grateful. So that was my direct experience. Yeah.
Gesa, would you like to add to that, or Ella or Joe?
Constructing. Yeah, what are we constructing? I'm very convinced that it's very much the space, like holding space and giving space to have hope, to dream of a better future, or to, like, the way we ask questions makes a huge difference. I don't quite agree with the just because I think it's very, very important. It's just a brilliant way of looking at people differently. And I think it starts with that huge solution-focused ear, like listening. That first I listen for the listen, select, build thing, that I listen out for any small detail that might tell me that there's something different, and then try to get that bigger, to walk around with a magnifying glass and to look for that.
Yeah, and behind that is our huge want to make them feel better and think better and act like they want to. So that's why we listen in that way, and that's why we say those things. Like my daughter would say, "You always want to make people feel better, like walking on the street and say to a lady in her small garden, those flowers look lovely, just because you want someone to feel better and go forwards in a better way. So that's why we listen and we look for and we ask, and we sometimes we don't say anything, or we go with the flow and having them complaining about something because they need it at that moment.
Yeah. It's a conversation about possibilities, right?
Yeah.
That's the bottom line. If there are things that happen to us that may be long lasting, and they may just be a moment in time, but change is inevitable. So what kind of change would you like to see? So it is about possibilities rather than deficits. So it's more than just, like you say, it's more than just a constructive conversation, because there are constructive conversations you can have with some people. You think, yeah, whatever. But if I know it's within my realm of influence, that I can actually do something about it, no matter how small, then it builds that hope and that possibility. So
and I think from my experience, because it's also my challenge to do both, to believe but also still stay behind them, like to not go too quick. I will never. At the beginning in Amsterdam, next to the department I'm working now, I did extra hours for traumatized refugees, and I remember one man where I thought, he seemed so capable, and he was, like, a lovely family father, 3 daughters, whatever, well trained in Afghanistan still. But he had been working, I think, for 15 years in a supermarket, like carrying meat, and he was a dentist. And I think in the beginning, I was far too quick. The first conversation, I went, and we're going to find something and we're going to do it. And he looked at me at some point and said, "You know what, Gesa, everybody says that, but I don't dare to hope anymore. Like I'm." And at that moment, what was lovely, because we had the rapport was already there, like the relationship. So we agreed on that I would hope and he would cope. That he would still be like in the like try to do his best to deal with the situation, and I would try to keep hope and find possibilities. And in the end we didn't manage, but we to at least not find the perfect job I I had in mind. And I think that's the big difference. It must be still the not believing in them too much and too quickly, but still stay behind them.
Yeah, I mean, it's that thing of hoping or knowing that your client has the resources, but like you say, not being more hopeful than your client is in a sense, because it's almost like you're setting me up to fail, because you're saying this is my possibilities, but there's even in the most dire situation, I suppose, and you must have seen this a lot, Gesa, in occupational therapy, where it almost seems hopeless. How does this approach build even just a glimmer of that hope?
A lot. I like it. That's another intervention. I mean, because I think in some of the settings, as Ella said, sometimes it doesn't work to only talk about the positive, because we've also, as a department, we're so much into looking to the future. What do you want instead? What do you want to do afterwards? And at some point we had clients say, but please also listen to the fear, to the feeling of what we've lost, of the suffering on the one hand, but also just you're allowed to feel sad about whatever you see your peers continue, and you're at least not in pace with what your expectations you had. And one thing I did, and what works quite well, is to a resource, I call it a resource chest of drawers, like to explain them, like in a chest of drawers you can have a few drawers which are empty, but others might be full. So I let them look at different roles they have as a student, as a parent, or a parent not as a son or as a friend, or as whatever roles they have, and to then look at the skills they have in those roles and the best hope for that role and whatever compliments they get. And then it doesn't feel so bad that maybe the employee drawer is empty. And then you have a different conversation. Then suddenly it works, and it's, of course, in their words. Then suddenly it's different, because the other one is also on the paper. There might be an empty, or it feels more empty. But of course, then with SF questions, you also get further. But I like it to give them I think it's also about holding space. And I mean, normally they're with us for 3 to 4 months, so I see them for quite a while, first in the clinic and then day clinic. So you do build a strong relationship many times. So you see them during the week, you see them interact. So you can also do what Insoo, I think, call the evidence-based compliments. If you feel you're not sociable, but I see that every time you get a coffee for the rest of the group, I'm in my right to say, well, I think you're polite. But
And I'm reminded of something that the guy who did the study of the Milwaukee, I'm trying to remember his name, it's age, becoming miracle workers. And he came up with a very nice phrase called constructing progressive stories. Because it, as you say, it's more than a conversation. It's actually, we're beginning to build up a new story, and the old story is being retold in a new way. And that kind of becomes a prelude for the new story that they're going to write for themselves.
I like it.
So, Gesa, you've done lots of games, board games, games on the floor, but with technology the way it is, when's the online one coming out? When's the app coming out?
It is not really my expertise, but I indeed have already got someone who it's not Soul Conference, but Dominic and Elfie organized one in May in Freiburg, a German chapter. And there was a lovely lady from Munich who does team coaching, executive coaching. And she said, oh, shouldn't we develop an online game together?
Yeah.
So we still, let me first do the like tick in the box for the real one, and then I would like it. I'm not sure I would feel the same about it, but I agree. It's a nice next step.
Mm.
To also make it available online.
Yeah, and the reach is I guess a lot further. I think.
Mm.
I think I'm like you. During lockdown, I missed human contact, and I missed that kind of let's get together. And but it also reminded me how useful this internet is, and how we would have been lost without it. So
True.
yeah.
And I think now in my online trainings, I used to like, or I still do, live trainings much more. But for example, one thing I also as a participant love about Zoom meetings is that part of you can't decide whom to go in a breakout room with. So I can't do, oh, I'm a little tired, let's do Aisha again. Like, let's do something, and then we can chat about last night.
But the thing is, we always end up in the same rooms.
Yeah.
Gesa and Ella and I always end up in the same rooms when we're on.
Magic. But I mean, I love it. And sometimes it happens that I go, oh, maybe not this person. And I get straight that person, and it's perfect. So I like that open, it feels like that open space idea, that the people there are the right people. So I like it. But I wouldn't yet say that I'm on the brim of inventing an online game. I actually, my next game would rather be a Dungeons and Dragons one. I would like to the constructing, like to do you turn a card and then you react and then you build your own path. So let's finish the mindset first, and then I even have a name already. But I think this is my big strength, but also my trouble, that my mind goes like, oh, this would be cool, and that would be cool. Yeah.
Like when you're halfway through, you think, okay, I've got the idea, I know what to do. I haven't finished it yet, but I know it. So next project, please.
No, I think I could say the mindset is finished, wasn't it? That I keep thinking, oh, okay, yeah, that would be, could still tweak it a bit. So at the conference, there was always a colleague and friend who said, let this just be version 1.0 and 0, and then next year we can discuss like the 2.0, the next version, but not yet.
I could just imagine all these solution-focused coaches, practitioners, therapists, all gathering on Zoom, playing one of your games, Gesa, and Brian hosting it. Brian hosting the whole thing. Like a Bruce Forsyth, Brian. Right? And he would be so strict with the rules, and you'd be in the background saying, this isn't how you play the game.
No, that's not allowed. I think number one in the rules, the first bullet point is cheating is allowed.
Oh, wow.
No, of course, because if you get a question you don't like, or you want, the funny thing is I have dice who only have a 1, 2, 3, and the 1, 2, because sometimes it feels like people are too quick. But if I do the 1, 2, 3, all they roll is a 1 or 2, and then it gets too slow. So I'm back to 1 to 6. But cheating is allowed. You always have people say, I want a different question, and then I say, how would you ask it differently? And then they just go on and play. So no strict rules.
So what about your training, Gesa? How are you hoping that will develop, or is that going really well anyway?
It's at the moment nearly too well. I've been postponing answering 2 emails for in-house training because I go, I'm going to do this with my family and everything else. But I think online is the way forward for now, because, and then maybe in the Netherlands. So my next experiment, if that works, it's fine to get German OTs or to the Netherlands, because that means I don't have to travel. I'm home at night. My kids are 10 and 12, so for the time being, I'm needed at home. And I think it's a brilliant combination to come to Amsterdam and follow a training and then enjoy the city. So
That's great.
Are your children guinea pigs for your games, Gesa?
Of course. And especially the young one goes, oh, I have another idea. You could do this and that. And I'm like, okay, no, but it's fine. I like it. And the older one is more interested in looking at the design and going on Canva and having a look at the designs I'm choosing and then thinking about that. Yeah.
Wow. So it's a collaboration.
Yeah. Great.
In the making.
Oh, yeah.
So we are actually nearly at the end. So I was going to take any last questions from you, Brian and Ella.
I'm not sure. Have you told us a beautiful story you actually want to share with?
A beautiful story. Odd. Let me think. Brian, ask a question first. I'll think about beautiful stories.
Could be from yours.
Or maybe no. I do because I do because it's a lovely story and it's so much Yvonne, who feels like my mentor. Like, and as I said, I loved when she had live clients and I had to translate. It was a hell of a work because you would, especially if she would ask a complicated question like, "What do you think your partner sees you doing when?" To not get lost in the translation. But I loved it. And we had one couple who was in the middle of not yet divorced, but on the brim. And she kept the miracle question became a very long thing. And I was listening to the husband and it was just his idea if he would come downstairs in the morning and she would focus only on him. Like he would be number one for her again. But the way he told it was so, I ended up in my head in the middle of one of those Hollywood movies where it became like a comic strip. Like I saw him come downstairs and she would, like the baby flies across the room because she only sees him. And in the middle of his talk, he stops and says, "She gets me." And I went, oh. I was in a trance. I was just so in that story, and I kept thinking, how can't she see that this is so romantic and that he's so in love with her? And then he turns and says, "She gets what I'm saying." Sorry.
That's funny.
And it was absolutely lovely, but at that moment I was so embarrassed. I thought, like, can we just get on with the story?
Oh God, I love that.
I was going to ask Gesa, in terms of all the many young people that you've helped with and supported, was there one that stands out that taught you more about yourself than about them?
Oh.
Yes, absolutely. And by now, I'm still in touch with him. Like one of my first clients in Amsterdam, who I also interviewed because later he became kind of a peer support for our clients, or coming in as on a voluntary basis once a week. And I interviewed him for an article on recovery as well, like on IPS and whatever. And I've always, from the start, I loved how he could reflect and his way, his humor and his, I think we, especially it was my start in Amsterdam, so my Dutch wasn't perfect. and I was also still figuring stuff out, but it was someone who really, and who at the beginning kept saying, like, in that article, he kept saying, like, when my bachelor thesis is done, I'm recovered. Then and it taught me so much on, Joe is gone.
That's all right.
It taught me so much on the supported deployment, but also again, just to hold space and be there as a person. And and by now he sent me a WhatsApp when he finally had an employment. Like it took years for him to be really where he wanted to be, but I've always been impressed by him. It was, yeah.
Oh, you're so lovely.
I think maybe that's one message. He said, like, what he would, I asked him for his, like, if there was all the money in the world, like, what would he change in our treatment? And he said, let there be someone who talks about life questions, who's not afraid to ask, who can really hold space, who can also deal with the difficult topics and can listen to it and deal with it. Yeah. But I think there's been many more.
Yeah.
And I've found men as well. Like, I don't dare to hope, but still he did. Yeah.
I wonder, is there a dream miracle game that you would like to invent?
A dream miracle game. I think that I would rather have them draw or construct themselves. I think the Dungeons and Dragons is the next thing. I would like the surprise thingy, like for them to turn around a card and then whatever, maybe even get a challenge on the way and then see, okay, whom do you want to ask for help, and then have it write it down. So I think that's going to be the next one.
I think Brian is very clever because he's just planting seeds into your head.
Of course.
That's what's happening, isn't it, Brian? You're
And what's
planting a
dangerous
seed.
is that they all come to bloom.
Yes, so you're going to you're going to go to bed tonight, and when you wake up in the morning,
There will be the game.
you're gonna say, well, hey, I'm inspired and I have a thought about this miracle game.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I know what Brian's doing. I know what Brian's doing. And
Brian,
I completely agree with him.
If I do, your name will be in
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a
in the
recording,
credits.
Brian, so you have to be credited for it. We have actually come to the end. So if I go to Ella first, any last words from you, Ella? Wonderful, Ella.
Thank you. No, it was really great to hear you, and we are so happy that on the conference of the Dutch Solution Focus conference, Gesa is going to show her game. So that's great.
Hey.
Yeah.
When is that?
December 17th.
Yeah.
Oh, a bit too close for us, Ash.
Now let's plan something next year. I think that's my closing statement. When are you coming to Amsterdam? We're going to play, and then we're going to go to that favorite bar of Aisha.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's less than an hour's flight. It's not even that far when you think about it.
Or even a full hour. I would take the train.
Yeah,
it's a 4-hour train ride. You're right in the center, and then it's a 5 minutes walk.
Wow.
There you go. We'll have to take the staff. Any last words from you, Brian?
I'm looking forward to the English versions.
Well, the game has an English version, so fine. The book, not yet. Get me a publisher.
Any publishers out there? Yes, please. And Joe?
Yeah, I always love these conversations. It's always eye-opening. Thank you to my fellow hosts. Gesa, thank you so much for just your creativity and how you come up with these ideas and how you engage young people, because it's something that we can fall flat on sometimes, because so it's given us food for thought to it seems like you can find any way in, and the questions you ask with these games, it's amazing. So thank you for that inspiration.
So if there's no English translation, let's just write an English practical book.
Yeah.
Just do it. And any last words from you, Gesa?
Oh, I absolutely loved it. Let's play. Come to Amsterdam.
You might have a flock of people now just kind of on trains and flights coming through.
I have a spare room.
Thank you. I'll be in Ella's spare room. Well, thank you to all of you that have joined us. You guys are absolutely amazing. And Gesa, I know we've been trying to plan this for a little while, and it's just been really hectic for whatever reason. You've been busy. Things have been hectic here, but it's finally happened, and I've enjoyed every single moment of it, to the point where this conversation has inspired me for the next FBS chat.
Ooh.
Ready? And we don't know who the guests are, because I'm going to ask people to tell me who, if you want to join, and we can have up to 4 guests. But the title of the FBS chat is The Miracle Within the Miracle Question.
Ooh.
And then I'll just say this is the title, discuss. and just let's see where it goes. Let's talk about the miracle question, because I know Gesa and I had the conversation before about how much do we actually use it and how we change it up according to the client. I know I asked the miracle question depending on who's sitting in front of me will deter how I ask it. But I don't go into, so if a miracle has happened, I don't personally ask that. But there are so many variations, so many different ways that we can ask that question, and so many ways that we can get them to engage within that conversation, that I thought, let's have an FBS chat.
I would love to be there. And Brian, I'm afraid the seat is right there. Because I thought, yes.
Yes. See, Brian, I'm helping you out here.
Because when you said, how do we ask it? I go, we could find a game. Thank God.
She's gonna be putting pen to paper tonight. That's what's gonna be. So if anyone does want to join us in that conversation of the miracle within the miracle question, I have not set a date yet, but please do get in contact with me and we will make it happen as soon as. But from us, if I can, I'll just ask you guys to just stay right there so we can say bye-bye behind the scenes. And for everybody else, we will see you very soon.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.